No? Yes, that for you. Buon pomeriggio a tutti, se prendiamo posto possiamo iniziare. Do il benvenuto e passo la parola alla dottoressa Pavi.
Grazie mille, Honorable Lupi, Maurizio Lupi. It's a great honor to be here, and good afternoon, distinguished participants. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to this high-level panel on countering hatred based on religion or belief, de-escalating polarization, preventing dehumanization, and religious weaponization. My name is Shafak Pavey, and I'm honored to be co-moderating actually our discussion today with Honorable Maurizio Lupi, who happens to be also, we happen to be also former deputy speakers of our parliaments, respective parliaments. And briefly, before he sheds light on the topic at hand, let me say a couple of words about myself, as well as outline why the topic we will be discussing is very much matters to the work of parliaments worldwide. My position currently, just a personal introduction perhaps to get to know each other, is that I'm former Deputy Speaker of Turkish Parliament and a Member of Parliament for 3 terms. But before that, I've been working also for the United Nations in different positions, mainly in human rights and peace building in the field across the globe. But currently I'm representing United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees as Special Envoy. And this is exactly why I'm also seated here, because we very much believe, at the face of these unprecedented numbers that we are facing with the eruption of conflicts, displacement, climate change, and multiple factors. We are currently looking at, just in the margin of, in 2 days' time, there will be the World Refugee Day, and we will be announcing the numbers again. We are looking at the unprecedented numbers of displaced people, mainly by the conflicts, persecution, and wars. 123 million that we are facing. And vis-à-vis that, in the contrary, the humanitarian funding is decreasing. So for us, looking at this root solutions, root causes, and long-lasting solutions to find a way of actually preventing displacement in the first place is crucial for our mandate. And I would like to turn to my co-moderator, Honorable Maurizio Lupi. Grazie.
Grazie a tutti, ringrazio la dottoressa Pavi e la collega per co-condurre questo primo panel che abbiamo insieme organizzato appunto con l'Unione Interparlamentare. Il tema, mi presento, appunto sono insieme al Presidente Casini e agli altri colleghi il vicepresidente dell'Unione Interparlamentare Italiana. Abbiamo lavorato insieme perché questo primo panel avesse un tema importante di confronto e di discussione: contrastare l'odio basato sulla religione o sul credo, ridurre la polarizzazione prevenendo la deumanizzazione e la strumentalizzazione della religione. Abbiamo ascoltato nell'introduzione una serie di spunti che credo possano aiutarci, oltre ai relatori che ascolteremo, al nostro confronto e al nostro dibattito. Il Presidente della Camera ci ha richiamato fortemente, cogliendo l'appello di Leone XIV, a costruire ponti e non a scavare solchi. La fede è la luce che ci unisce, abbiamo ascoltato nelle introduzioni, e la forza rafforzare la fiducia e abbracciare la speranza, che è concreta e tangibile. Io volevo, come brevissimo contributo, recuperare il discorso che ha già citato il Presidente Casini di Giovanni Paolo II ad Assisi. È stato il primo grande momento di confronto e di dialogo vero tra le religioni, dimostrando che è proprio la fede ciò che ci unisce. Giovanni Paolo II diceva, sempre in quella parte di discorso: con le religioni mondiali condividiamo un comune rispetto e obbedienza alla coscienza, la quale insegna a noi tutti a cercare la verità, ad amare e servire tutti gli individui e tutti i popoli e perciò a fare pace tra i singoli e tra le nazioni. Anche se ci sono molte e importanti differenze tra noi, c'è anche un fondo comune, donde operare insieme nella soluzione di questa drammatica sfida della nostra epoca. Vera pace o guerra catastrofica? Sì, ma in questa stessa differenza abbiamo scoperto di nuovo, forse, che per quanto riguarda il problema della pace e la sua relazione all'impegno religioso, c'è sempre qualcosa che ci unisce. Ecco, io credo che sia proprio questa il valore e anche la grande attualità e la grande rilevanza che ci vede qui oggi a Roma uniti a confrontarci in questo secondo momento di grande riflessione del dialogo interreligioso dell'Unione Interparlamentare. Per questo ci confronteremo e sono molto contento insieme alla collega Pavi di moderare, di introdurre i relatori e di ascoltare poi i vostri contributi.
So we are, of course, joined on the podium by a distinguished group of experts and distinguished speakers. Before introducing them, let me cover how today's session will unfold, some of the ground rules. Each panelist will actually deliver a concise presentation to start with, roughly 4 to 5 minutes, based on their expertise and thoughts. They will reflect on the session's theme and explore how it relates to parliamentary roles and responsibilities. After that, I'll open the floor to questions and comments from the audience that we are looking at the second hour. Well before the conference, we have asked participants to register their interest to speak at this high-level panel, and delightfully we have received many. Now the list was closed, is closed, but we are really very happy to see the interest. Also bearing in mind the time constraints, we have closed the list. However, it will be also possible for any additional participants to ask the floor if we have time pending. So, and a little bit of flexibility there. However, we will also ask for the floor participants to really restrict it to 2 to 3 minutes maximum. Let me turn back to Mr. Lupi, who will introduce our first panelist.
Sì, grazie. Entriamo quindi nel vivo del nostro confronto ascoltando il primo relatore, un primo come tutti gli altri autorevole relatore. Si tratta di Sua Eminenza, il Cardinale George Jacob Koovakad. Cardinale Koovakad è Prefetto del Dicastero per il dialogo interreligioso, l'organismo principale del Vaticano per la promozione del dialogo tra le religioni. Nominato nel 2023, svolge un ruolo centrale nel promuovere l'impegno globale della Santa Sede con le altre fedi e nel favorire la comprensione reciproca. Eminenza, Cardinale, a lei la parola.
Signor Presidente della Camera dei Deputati, Signor Presidente del Senato, Signora Presidente dell'Unione Interparlamentare, onorevoli deputati e parlamentari distinti convenuti, desidero iniziare il mio intervento con una breve premessa storica circa la nascita e lo sviluppo del Dicastero per il dialogo interreligioso, che può aiutare a comprendere quanto questa tematica sia cara alla Chiesa. Il Dicastero nasce nel 1964 per iniziativa e con l'impegno di San Paolo VI. Come forse qualcuno ricorderà, in quegli anni la Chiesa Cattolica era impegnata in un profondo sforzo di rinnovamento, il Concilio Vaticano II. Si trattò di un evento ecclesiale di ampia portata che coinvolse tutte le dimensioni della fede e del magistero. L'assise conciliare si era aperta l'11 ottobre 1962, concludendosi poi l'8 dicembre 1965. In quel contesto fu elaborata la dichiarazione Nostra Aetate, nella quale i padri conciliari esordivano con parole dense di significato ancora oggi di straordinaria attualità che desidero qui richiamare. Nel nostro tempo, in cui il genere umano si unifica di giorno in giorno più strettamente e cresce l'interdipendenza tra i popoli, la Chiesa esamina con maggiore attenzione la natura delle sue relazioni con le religioni non cristiane. nel suo dovere di promuovere l'unità e la carità tra gli uomini e, anzi, tra i popoli. Essa considera tutto ciò che gli uomini hanno in comune e che li spinge a vivere insieme il loro comune destino. Questa nuova configurazione del mondo poneva e continua a porre interrogativi fondamentali sul ruolo delle religioni nello scenario globale. I padri conciliari colsero profeticamente che l'emergere di nuovi soggetti ed equilibri avrebbe potuto condurre anche a nuovi conflitti, talvolta consumati sul crinale del credo religioso. Nasceva così il segretariato per i non cristiani, la lettera apostolica progrediente Concilio di San Paolo VI nella Pentecoste del 1964, a concilio ancora aperto, ne delineava la struttura. Specialisti guidati allora, animati da ardore di carità divina e consapevoli della propria missione di promuovere l'unità in questi tempi in cui fra gli uomini di ogni razza, lingua e religione si vanno sviluppando molteplici rapporti. Nei decenni che sono seguiti, San Giovanni Paolo II e da ultimo il compianto Papa Francesco hanno rinnovato instancabilmente questo slancio iniziale, affidando all'attuale Dicastero per il dialogo interreligioso 3 missioni fondamentali: promuovere la mutua comprensione, il rispetto e la collaborazione fra i cattolici e i seguaci di altre tradizioni religiose, incoraggiare lo studio delle religioni, promuovere la formazione di persone votate al dialogo. E vengo ora alla questione che ci riunisce oggi, l'odio in nome di Dio. Pongo una domanda che forse è già implicita nell'invito a questo panel di alto livello. Il dialogo può costituire un valido strumento di pacificazione tra i popoli? Può essere un rimedio al conflitto religioso? Per rispondere occorre, prima di tutto, fare alcune precisazioni. Il dialogo interreligioso non può in alcun modo sostituire coloro che esercitano responsabilità di governo a livello mondiale nel loro impegno a porre fine alle guerre che si combattono anche nel nome della religione. Ciò che il dialogo può fare è affermare con chiarezza l'incompatibilità dell'odio, della brutalità e della discriminazione con qualsiasi autentica esperienza religiosa. Pertanto si deve riaffermare che ogni persona umana ha ricevuto dal Creatore una dignità unica e inviolabile, che ogni essere umano è titolare di diritti e libertà inalienabili, che servire il prossimo significa crescere insieme nella nostra umanità. Attraverso il dialogo si può asserire che il ruolo della religione è, per sua natura, un ruolo di pace e che non può mai essere motivo di distruzione. La distruzione nasce sempre da una perversione della religione, quello di appellarsi a Dio per giustificare massacri e brutalità è una perversione religiosa e non di meno è moralmente inammissibile. Una guerra in nome di Dio non è mai accettabile. Di questo, come credenti, tutti abbiamo il dovere morale di farci testimoni, prima di tutto ricercando tra noi, al di là delle differenze, le vie di incontro che ci rendono reali promotori di comunione e di riconciliazione di unità. Papa Leone XIV ha voluto ulteriormente sottolineare nel suo discorso al corpo diplomatico accreditato presso la Santa Sede, individuando in particolare nei valori di pace, giustizia e verità le luci per un proficuo cammino comune e ribadendo in tale percorso la volontà della Chiesa cattolica di farsi promotrice di umanità al servizio della famiglia dei popoli. In particolare, poi ha offerto in tali processi il contributo della Santa Sede, la quale è sempre animata da una urgenza pastorale che la spinge non a cercare privilegi, ma ad intensificare la sua missione evangelica a servizio dell'umanità, specialmente attraverso la plurisecolare esperienza della diplomazia pontificia, strumento prezioso ed espressione della cattolicità stessa della Chiesa. e potremo finire ricordando proprio le sue parole conclusive riferite all'anno giubilare in corso, ma valide in senso più ampio anche per l'attuale frangente internazionale. Il nostro è un tempo di conversione e di rinnovamento e soprattutto l'occasione per lasciare alle spalle le contese e cominciare un cammino nuovo, animati dalla speranza di poter costruire, lavorando insieme, ciascuno secondo le proprie sensibilità e responsabilità, un mondo in cui ognuno possa realizzare la propria umanità nella verità, nella giustizia e nella pace. Sia questo il nostro comune auspicio. Grazie per il vostro cortese ascolto.
And yet it is my pleasure to now introduce His Excellency Dr. Ali Rashid Al-Nuaimi, who is the founder and chairman of Manara Center for Coexistence and Dialogue, member of the United Arab Emirates Federal National Council. Dr. Al-Nuaimi is a global advocate for peace and countering extremism. He also chairs Hedaya, the International Center for Excellence for Countering Violent Extremism. Dr. Al-Nuaimi occupied several senior positions in the IPU and is a champion of parliamentary diplomacy. Honorable Al-Nuaimi, you have the floor, please.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, dear colleagues, I think we are very fortunate here. You know, we are here to talk about, in this session, about hate. But I think we have a great opportunity where we can activate the parliamentarian diplomacy and the religious diplomacy to do so. And this is where it's very important that each side in this hall understand their role, their responsibility, and have the courage, you know, to move forward and engage. One of the main principles of the IPU is dialogue. And I think we, you know, as representative people and also as faith leaders, we need to engage in dialogue. Because, you know, actually, whenever you don't know the other side, you become scared or frightened. You don't want to deal with them because you don't know them. But once you start having a dialogue with them, sending the right message, building bridges of trust, respect, and understanding, through that, you will be able to create initiatives, program, and engage in countering the main threat that we face as humanity. Hate, we believe in the UAE, it should be considered a crime, regardless of the source or the audience. Because at the end, hate is an enemy of humanity. And here we see the role of member of parliament, that they have the responsibility of creating the right laws and legislation to criminalize hate. At the same time, there is the responsibility of faith leaders to promote coexistence. All faith, they have great values in them. What we need is to have a dialogue and listen to each other. Share responsibility to counter the main threat and the common threat. And this is where I think, because of such an event that we are having today, we need to proceed not only by declaration, but by initiatives, program. We should have the courage to work based on prevention, through our educational system, religious narratives, laws and legislation, to immune the new generation from being hijacked by a hate narrative that will divide us. We have here faith leaders, but at the same time, there is those who present themselves as representative of all religion, but they want to drag us to a religious war where there is no winner in that. We all will lose. And this is where it's our responsibility not to leave a vacuum, to allow those who want to divide us to fill that vacuum. No, we should have the courage and work based on prevention and engage to create a better future for all humanities. My colleague, religious leaders, you will not be able, through the globalization that we are facing now, to create a better future for your follower only. You have to bear the responsibility of all humanity. And this is where it's our responsibility to invest in the coexistence value that bring us together, to use dialogue as a tool to do so, and make sure that hate is a crime, that hate is a serious threat to all of us, to all humanity. Thank you.
Grazie. Adesso vogliamo presentarvi il rabbino David Rosen, rabbino capo e leader interreligioso. Il rabbino Rosen è consigliere speciale interreligioso presso l'Abrahamic Family House di Abu Dhabi ed è co-presidente di Religions for Peace. È un sostenitore globale del dialogo ebraico-cristiano-musulmano e della comprensione interreligiosa. Purtroppo, a causa dei recenti eventi in Medio Oriente e della chiusura dello spazio aereo, il rabbino David Rosen non ha potuto recarsi a Roma, qui con noi. E da casa sua, a Gerusalemme, ha registrato il videomessaggio, cioè il suo contributo, che adesso ascoltiamo tutti insieme.
Famous passage in Al-Hujurat in Surah 49, verse 13. While there are many different activities that take place within societies, most people don't know about them. And most people don't get even any opportunity to be able to see that there are constructive engagements and that indeed the religions themselves really do want to be able to play a constructive role for the well-being of society. It is here that Parliament and parliamentarians have a particular role to play. All the recommendations of the Marrakesh communique are particularly important, and I don't know to what degree these are followed up in any kind of report to see to what extent these are implemented. But one thing I would particularly recommend is the engagement of media. The engagement of media so that people can get to know about positive initiatives and can get to know the different communities, whether it's around a calendar event or a particular issue. And therefore I would really encourage parliamentarians to take the initiative to meet with national media in order to encourage them to engage religious leadership or to engage knowledge about the different religious communities that can educate communities and ensure that ignorance is combated and that stereotypes are rectified and that misrepresentation doesn't take place, so that societies at large may flourish and that religion and the different communities may contribute to the well-being of society at large. Thank you.
And yet, it is once again, my pleasure to introduce Archbishop Angelos, the Coptic Orthodox Archbishop of London. His Eminence is widely respected for his advocacy on religious freedom and human rights. He founded and chairs REFKEMI, the Church's Office for Advocacy and Public Policy, and was awarded an OBE for services to international religious freedom. In recent years, he has been very involved in dialogue initiatives of Wilton Park, which had a session together with Globe Ethics this morning as well, the dialogue body of the UK Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office. Archbishop, you have the floor.
There you go. Thank you, moderator. We are fighting with the microphone. There you go. We are reconciling with and dialoguing, exactly. Moderator, thank you very much. It is indeed a privilege to be with you all and to be speaking in this wonderful chamber. I must first thank the IPU and thank you all as policymakers and as parliamentarians. As we all know, this is a thankless role. You do what you can, as much as you can, but you will always end up being blamed by someone. And yet, it is only because of your commitment that you continue to do what you do. And that brings me to what I want to speak about here, and that is that we must be willing to work with one another and present solutions. As religious leaders and religious representatives, to be a support to policymakers, not a constant challenge. I suppose that then brings me to what is religion or belief? How do we look at it? First of all, it is a holistic way of life. It is not something that can be compartmentalized, and that is the problem in many parts of the world where we think we can deal with religion by itself and policy by itself and humanitarian aid by itself and reconciliation by itself. It doesn't work. For 80+% of the world's population, as we discussed this morning, and I'll come to that later, people see themselves as having a religion or belief. And so it becomes part of their identity and their ethos. And for many of that 80+%, they live in the Middle East, North Africa, and the global South, in which, and sub-Saharan Africa, in which religion is very much a part of the makeup, and so must be dealt with in that way. That makes us not only a vast majority of the world's population, it makes us collectively the biggest NGO in the world, a vehicle through which we can do good if we are able to work with one another and we are able to provide what one another needs. Of course, leadership in that context is important. Albert Einstein said something which I try to live by in my own ministry. He says, a clever person can resolve a problem. A wise person avoids it. And so if we are going to look at religious leaders and policymakers, it is not good enough for us to just come together when we want to resolve a problem. Of course, it's important for us to do so. But if we work together and if we collaborate, we can be part of an ethos that takes away dehumanization, that takes away hatred, and that puts forth a new narrative. We cannot replace one another. but we complement one another. Our roles are different, but complementary. We discussed this morning at our meeting the significance and the trust that is placed in religious leaders. And that is a wonderful thing that can be used as a force for good. Collaboration between us is no longer a luxury, it is an absolute necessity. And that is why we are gathered here in this chamber today. We need to fight against a narrative that says that religion is the cause of trouble. And if we distance ourselves from religion and distance religion from politics and policy making, then we no longer have a problem. In actual fact, religion, faith, belief is a significant and important part of the solution. And that is why we must continue to work together. We must, as religious leaders, have a prophetic voice, a voice that is a moral compass, that is unchanging, a voice that is stable, and that is honest. We need to be honest with each other in that sense. This morning we had this meeting of the Wilton Park initiative in which we spoke about this complementarity and how we work together. In closing, I just want to say this, that we are meant to work with each other. The world, if we look at it through God's eyes, is a series of systems, the seasons, the stars, the satellites, everything around us. We need to work together so that we can bring forth justice in the world. And that, as I said this morning, I close with something that is, unfortunately, something that I do as a religious leader, and I quote scripture. And if we go to the book of Micah, he says, "He has shown you, O man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with God." We need to do that. Justice, mercy, and humility together. Madam President challenged us earlier to 3 core things. And Madam, with others I'm sure in this chamber, we commit ourselves to those and look forward to our continuing journey together. Thank you.
Grazie. Adesso passiamo la parola all'Imam Pallavicini, presidente del Majlis dei leader musulmani europei, vicepresidente del Coreis e membro del Consiglio di amministrazione del Consiglio dei leader musulmani ed ebrei d'Europa. L'Imam Pallavicini fornisce consulenza sull'Islam e sul dialogo interreligioso in tutta Europa. È una voce di spicco nella formazione teologica, nell'integrazione dei musulmani e nell'educazione interculturale in Occidente. Imam Pallavicini, a lei la parola.
Grazie. Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of God, the merciful, and I'm happy to make reference to this holy name and attribute of God according to Islamic doctrine, because in Italy this year the Christians are experiencing the Jubilee of Hope, and Monsignor Fisichella is the delegate of Pope Leon on this value of hope, but he was also formerly the speaker of the Jubilee of Mercy. And again, you can see already in this first example how many common roots and how many orientations we can share among brothers and sisters in Christianity and in Islam and in other faith-based doctrines and communities. The reference to mercy, rahmah, the reference to hope this year, and we will be meeting, inshallah, on Saturday with Pope Leo as an exchange on this virtue. Now, I'm asked to try to contribute from a European perspective on the de-escalation of this polarization. And this is something that needs to be somehow framed in the relation between religious leaders and members of international and national parliament. And I would say that probably for what concerns religious leaders, as it was mentioned again by Archbishop Angelos, is the need to have a consistency in trying to interpret and update our reference to a prophetic voice. And if I may, I would not allow myself to say what parliamentarians should do, but allow me at least to say what they should not do. According to me, parliamentarians should not try to interpret a messianic voice. So religious leaders should be prophetic, and parliamentarians should not be messianic. What does that mean? It means that if we engage together with these standards, to interpret a prophetic voice for religious leaders means to be consistent with holy principles, means to be consistent with a famous document that was launched with the help of the Kingdom of Jordan to love God, love our neighbor, and love the common good. And this is, I think, even the three levels of love, which is much more than not hatred. So the solution for hatred is to learn together how to manage the love for God, the love for our neighbor, and the love for common good. It can be an example, and I think this was a success story in the approach of Islamo-Christian dialogue between the East and the West. So this can be a reference and can be a prophetic implementation of our roles in all religious communities, as all religious doctrines make reference to mercy and to hope. It also doctrines make reference to love for a principle, for a truth, for common good, and also for our neighbors. So this is how we can interpret our action plan as religious leaders together and within our intra-faith challenges. Now, why I'm saying that the parliamentarians should not call for a messianic role? Because this is where, if I may say, the weaponization of religion is abused by some ideological movements and unfortunately also by some politicians who are not consistent with their secular role of managing their people, their land and life, and not murder, and not violence, and not terrorism. So this is how the abuse of a messianic dimension is leading us into a chaos of polytheism, where every identity is challenging one against the other, and it's going back to something that, according to the Islamic doctrine, has been erased by the revelation and by the mercy of prophethood. So this is, I think, the two levels of our reference to practice together a reference to love, love of our Lord, love of our tradition, love to the common good, with mercy and hope, and not playing the role of being one against the other as an exclusive patron of truth against the falsehood that one is going to accuse to the other. Thank you so much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
And yet, I have the great pleasure And yet, I have the great pleasure of turning to my dear colleague at the same time as also representing UN, Dr. Nazila Ghanea, UN Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Religion and Belief and Professor of International Human Rights Law at Oxford University. Her scholarship and United Nations mandate focus on advancing legal protections for religious freedom and combating discrimination worldwide. Dr. Gania, over to you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you to the IPU. Thank you to the co-panelists. It's a real pleasure to be here. The UN mandate on freedom of religion or belief is global in focus and has continued for the last 40 years. Regrettably, hatred based on religion or belief has consistently occupied both the mandate and the mandate holders over the decades. The manifestations of hatred that we are called upon to recognize and raise with authorities are many, be it through thematic reports to the UN General Assembly or the United Nations Human Rights Council, in country visits, communications, or the myriad other engagements, such as this one that I have the pleasure to be with you. One example that comes to mind in this part of the world are the attacks, the burnings of the Holy Quran in Europe. In other contexts, minorities such as Ahmadis are accused of defacing the Holy Quran and sentenced or face summary justice without any evidence. Other minorities too suffer above and beyond, even in dire war and conflict situations and humanitarian crisis situations. Even in these situations, the cynical scapegoating of minorities by the authorities is only too convenient to seek to absolve themselves of their shortcomings or failure to protect their populations. We recall the instances of mass atrocities, for example, against Yazidis, mob violence against Muslims, attacks on atheists or converts, and security threats against so many places of worship are now surrounded, have surveillance and have security, sometimes because of the suspicion of the authorities and sometimes for their own safety. My last report to the UN General Assembly addressed peace and freedom of religion or belief, considering peace as holistic and sustainable and contrasting it with violence, injustice, and war. Another thematic report on the issue of advocacy of hatred based on religion or belief was presented at the UN Human Rights Council in 2024, allowing occasion to engage with states, faith-based actors, and civil society more broadly about the topic and the trends relating to it. Sometimes the destruction of religious symbols, including the desecration of graves and places of worship, are the key examples of manifestations of hatred. There are also, regrettably, regular reports of direct threats and harassments against religion or belief minority groups, especially in moments of increased polarization, such as around elections or during religious holy days and festivals. The Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Expression, Irene Khan, noted only yesterday to the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva that vilifying minorities and marginalized groups, smearing women politicians, discrediting independent journalists, targeting electoral officials, delegitimizing electoral outcomes are worrying trends in many recent elections. Closely related to the issue of destruction of religious symbols is the mobilization of accusations of blasphemy, apostasy, or even lack of loyalty or espionage, including against minorities. Sometimes these accusations relate to concrete alleged acts, which can be false, yet spread like wildfire through social media, resulting in mob attacks and lynching. Indeed, the authorities get very excited when it's the mobs that attack and they stand by and take no action. However, in other cases, the very religious beliefs of certain groups, such as Baha'is or Christians, can be considered as blasphemy or apostasy, meaning that simply holding or manifesting their religion or belief serves as grounds for mobilizing violence against them. Conspiracy theories are also regrettably common, for example, relating to the replacement of one race or ethnic group with another, often the migrant population. Religion or belief may serve as the coded language to promote such xenophobic aims. How painful it is when it's allegedly in the name of religion or belief itself that hatred is perpetuated, as so many of my co-panelists drew attention to. Here, religion or belief minorities or migrants are painted as being criminal, as being less equal, accused with no evidentiary requirement. Such a cynical promotion of hatred can serve concrete political or economic ends. Restrictions on asylum or migration, daylight robbery of land and businesses, or to maintain the exclusion of a particular minority or caste from many arenas of work, or assign them to menial or dangerous work. It is indeed noticeable, I think that might be for me. It is especially noticeable how expressions of hatred and violence on this basis accompany periods of high tension. Here, the potential for parliamentarians to urgently address this trend becomes acute. A particularly painful part of the work that you do must be to stand against the mobilization of religion as a justification for violence and hatred. I will stop here and perhaps have a chance to come back later. Thank you.
Grazie di cuore. Ultimo, ma non meno importante, la signora Uswatun Hasanah è la fondatrice di Eko Bhinneka Surakarta, Indonesia, e promuove iniziative ambientali e interreligiose guidate dai giovani. Lavora per rafforzare la convivenza pacifica attraverso la gestione ecologica e la sua cooperazione e la cooperazione interreligiosa tra comunità diverse. A lei la parola.
Grazie. Okay. Honorable Parliament Member, religious leader, and colleagues. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Uswatun Hasanah. I come from Indonesia, a nation of more than 17,000 islands, 700 languages, and hundreds of ethnics, and have 6 major religions followed by Indonesian. This is rich diversity is a source of strength, but also makes Indonesia deeply vulnerable to religious and cultural conflict if not handled with care. I'm a Muslim woman, a peace educator working in Muhammadiyah University Purwokerto, and activist working through Jisra Eko Bhinneka Muhammadiyah, grassroots movement that bridge different through interfaith and environmental action. This issue is deeply personal to me. I have seen how hate fueled by political narratives and digital disinformation can damage trust and resilience cooperation across community. In a diverse country like mine, where religious and cultural lines run close, one spark of hatred can ignite a wider fire. Yeah, and then we have 6 religion, yeah, like Islam, Christian, Hindu, Buddhist, Confucian, and Islam has the larger population, 87%. One urgent problem I want to highlight in the politicization of religion and the amplification of hate speech, especially in online spaces. In Indonesia, religious statements are often exploited for political gain, particularly during election period. Social media then becomes a tool that spread fear and disinformation, targeting minority groups and youth from interfaith background, and also women. This polarization increases social fragmentation, weakens democracy engagement, and fuels distrust, particularly in areas where historical tension already exists. To counter this, we create Eko Bhinneka, yeah. Eco is ecology, Bhinneka is diverse, yeah. A peace movement that concept people of different religion and belief to work on shared environmental concern. Ecobineka is not just a program, but it's a bridge. Yeah. Instead of arguing over our differences, we united around a common crisis is climate change. Yeah, from tree planting and mural painting to eco festival we create and interfaith dialogue we create. Ecobineka creates safe, creative spaces for young people to build solidarity while protecting the planet. Yeah, also we create activity to doing digital campaigns, because when floods or drought come, they don't ask, what's your religion you follow? In a country like Indonesia, we both natural disaster and social conflict are frequent. This integrated approach is vital. Yeah, I recall a moment from one of our Ecobineka festival in Central Java. Yeah, we choose Central Java, especially in Surakarta city, because it's a culturally diverse city with a history of interreligious tension, but also strong community networks open to collaboration. It reflects both the challenge and possibility of peace building in Indonesia. Yeah, a Muslim student and a Christian student were paired to plant tree and paint a mural together. At first, they barely spoke, but as they dug into the soil, added the color to the wall, they began to share story, a fear of misconception, of curiosity. Yeah, if we talk about differences and interfaith issue, yeah, we have about issue about the westernization. Yeah, you know, yeah, if we talk about that, yeah, it's issue about westernization. Yeah, by the end of the day, yeah, one of them told me, I thought we were too different to understand each other, but we both win when clean air, peace, and future. That is power of creating something together. This story also can be the story of many other people. If we do these four things that I think are very important to expand this impact, I suggest first one, institutionalize peace and ecological education in school curricula, especially with interfaith and youth component. Second one, support community interfaith initiative through public funding and cross-sector collaboration, especially those that combine arts, dialogue, and sustainability. And then empower digital literacy and counter speech training for youth and local leaders, especially religious leaders, to reduce online hate and amplify message of peace. And the last, involve youth meaningfully in policy making, especially from minority group, so they are not only seen as beneficiary, but as a co-leader of peace. When we equip young people with tools and trust, they become builders of harmony, not followers of division. Yeah, Indonesia, yeah, show us paradox, great diversity, great beauty, but also great risk when hate is left unhacked. But it also show us something else, the possibility of turning shared challenge into shared purpose. Yeah, let's all build peace not by ignoring our differences, but by acting together where it matters most. The earth is our shared home, and peace is our shared responsibility. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
On behalf of my co-moderator and myself, we wish to thank all our panelists, experts, for their valuable and insightful contributions. We will now be turning to the order that we have registered speakers from the floor in order to allow us to accommodate everyone. We are doing very well by the time, by the way. So far, so good. We would really like to remind once again to stick to 3 minutes maximum, please, as much as possible. We would really appreciate that so that more floor participation could be possible and interaction. So indeed, the insights, reactions, or examples from you are what will energize our session and deepen the conversation. That is, with those wishes, I would like to turn to my co-moderator.
No, credo che adesso appunto sia molto interessante ascoltare i contributi di ognuno di voi. Purtroppo il tempo è limitato, ci sono tanti contributi qualificati, abbiamo oltre 16 già iscritti e quindi la cortesia è di stare nel tempo che ci siamo assegnati, 3 minuti. Si è già iscritto il Presidente del Consiglio di amministrazione del King Ahmad Global Center per la convivenza e la tolleranza, Abdullah bin Hamed. Prego.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أصحاب المعالي والسعادة، السيدات والسادة الحضور الكرام، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. يسرني أن أتقدم بخالص الشكر والتقدير للاتحاد البرلماني الدولي والبرلمان الإيطالي على تنظيم هذا المؤتمر الهام بالتعاون مع منظمة أديان من أجل السلام. أن مشاركتي في هذا المحفل البرلماني الدولي الرفيع تأتي تأكيداً على أهمية تضافر الجهود الدولية لمواجهة موجات العنف والتطرف وخطابات الكراهية التي تتفاقم آثارها المأساوية على المدنيين الأبرياء، لا سيما من الأطفال والنساء، في ظل صراعات تتنافى مع أبسط القيم الإنسانية والمواثيق الدولية. ولا يفوتني في هذه المناسبة وبالتزامن مع سنة اليوبيل التي أعلن عنها قداسة البابا فرانسيس بابا الفاتيكان الراحل أن أشيد بإرثه الإنساني النبيل كقائد إنساني ديني حكيم ورمز عالمي للتسامح، مع تمنياتنا الصادقة لقداسة البابا ليو الرابع عشر بمواصلة هذه الرسالة السامية في خدمة الحوار والتفاهم بين الأديان والثقافات. أصحاب المعالي والسعادة، أن مملكة البحرين بقيادة حضرة صاحب الجلالة الملك المعظم حفظه الله ورعاه وفق توجهات الحكومة برئاسة صاحب السمو الملكي الأمير سلمان بن حمد الخليفة رئيس ولي العهد رئيس مجلس الوزراء حفظه الله، تولي أولوية استراتيجية لترسيخ قيم التسامح والتعايش المشترك، وتؤمن بأن الحوار والسبل السلمية ركائز مثلى لتسوية النزاعات وتعزيز المجتمعات الشاملة والمزدهرة. ويشرفني أن أستعرض العلاقات المتنامية لمركز الملك حمد العالمي للتعايش والتسامح مع الاتحاد البرلماني الدولي، حيث تمكن المركز بالتعاون مع الاتحاد بعد توقيع مذكرة التعاون في أكتوبر من عام 2024 على تنظيم مدارس العلوم من أجل السلام في الأردن خلال مايو الماضي، حيث شهدت إطلاق المركز بالتعاون مع الاتحاد البرلماني الدولي مشروعين مبتكرين قائمين على الذكاء الاصطناعي، حيث أن المشروع المساعد الذكي يمثل منصة رقمية مبتكرة لدعم المؤسسات التشريعية والتنفيذية في إدارة المهام وتحليل البيانات وإعداد التقارير وصنع القرار، بينما يركز المشروع المشاركة الذكي على تعزيز المشاركة الفعالة في الحوارات والمؤتمرات عبر دمج الذكاء الاصطناعي مع تسليط الضوء على أخلاقيات التكنولوجيات وحوكمتها. وفي هذا السياق يسعدني أن أستعرض عددا من المبادرات الرائدة لمملكة البحرين التي عززت مكانتها كمنارة للحريات الدينية ونموذجا عالميا في تعزيز الحوار والتعايش انسجابا مع الرؤية الملكية المستنيرة وأهداف هذا المؤتمر، ومن أبرزها إعلان مملكة البحرين لحرية الدين والمعتقد الذي يجسد رؤية جلالة الملك بأن الجهل عدو السلام، ومن واجبنا أن نتعلم ونتقاسم ونعيش معا بروح الاحترام والمحبة. أصحاب المعالي والسعادة، إن العالم يقف اليوم عند مفترق طرق يستوجب اعتماد نهج شامل يرتكز على الحوار كوسيلة للتقارب والسلام كخيار استراتيجي لا غنى عنه لصون مسيرتنا الإنسانية وتأمين وصولها لغدها المشرق، والتضامن كمحفز للأمل في سبيل بناء مستقبل أكثر عدالة وشمولا واحتراما لكرامة الإنسان. واستنادا إلى النهج الإنساني والدبلوماسي الحكيم الذي أرساه جلالة الملك المعظم، فإن مركز الملك حمد العالمي للتعايش والتسامح يتبنى رؤية متكاملة مبتكرة لمد جسور الحوار والتفاهم واحتضان الأمل كمنهج عمل مستدام في مواجهة التحديات الراهنة. ومن أبرز معالمها أولاً إعداد وثيقة إنسانية عالمية للتعايش بمشاركة رجال الدين والسياسة والمفكرين، تمثل أساساً لمعاهدات دولية جديدة تعزز العدالة وتعلي من شأن الإنسان وتنبذ الإقصاء بما يتناغم مع إعلان المنامة وإعلان مراكش. وثانياً تنظيم مؤتمر دولي للتعايش والسلام الإقليمي والدولي بما يضمن حقوق الشعوب في العيش المشترك بأمان ورخاء ويكرس السبل السلمية كخيار وحيد لحل النزاعات. في الختام نتمنى لأعمال هذا المؤتمر كل التوفيق. شكرا لكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
And yet, in the order of the registration, I would like to invite Right Honorable Gerardo Fernandez Noronha. Por favor, the floor is yours.
Muchas gracias. Agradezco la oportunidad de dar un mensaje. Vengo de México, un país mayoritariamente católico. Yo soy parte de una minoría. Soy ateo. Creo que cuando me muera me chupa la bruja y no existe nada más. Y a pesar de ser ateo, sostengo que hay que darle la mano al hermano, hay que dar la mano a la hermana, hay que ayudar al que sufre, hay que apoyar al necesitado. Y en México existe el racismo, como en el mundo, el clasismo, la intolerancia religiosa en menor medida, la homofobia, la discriminación, la misoginia. Pero estamos en un buen momento. Yo quiero compartir otra cosa. Traigo un peso en el corazón que me sobrepasa, que no puedo con él solo. Soy de las pocas voces que ha alzado la voz en mi país en contra de lo que está sucediendo al pueblo palestino. Una niña me hizo un video diciéndome que los ayudara, que querían vivir, que querían jugar, que querían estudiar. Y me parece inconcebible el silencio que hay sobre lo que está pasando en Palestina. 18.000 niños y niñas asesinados por un Estado confesional, 18.000 mujeres, iglesias destruidas, mezquitas que son lugares sagrados, hospitales, escuelas. Yo quiero que nuestras voces se alcen, por lo menos nuestras voces, para exigir que eso termine. Cualquier nombre que se le quiera dar a lo que está pasando en Palestina, ambos pueblos, el pueblo judío y el pueblo palestino, tienen derecho a existir, tienen derecho a la coexistencia, tienen derecho al diálogo, tienen derecho a las oportunidades, tienen derecho al respeto a sus diferentes visiones religiosas, políticas, éticas. Y esa es la razón de por qué quise venir a este espacio y a este encuentro. Solicitar que rompamos ese silencio, que además estamos cerca de una guerra que no queremos, porque las hostilidades se han ido además a otros países de la región. Me parece muy importante, insisto, no vengo a pedir algo para mi país, nuestro compromiso con la tolerancia, con el respeto, con la democracia, con la igualdad, con las libertades es absoluto. Luchamos muchas décadas para que eso empezara a cambiar y va cambiando para bien en nuestro país. Pero me parece que es necesario, y termino, que nuestras voces se escuchen y que logremos la paz, ciertamente, en todos los rincones del mundo, empezando por el sufrido pueblo palestino. Muchas gracias por su atención.
Grazie. Adesso abbiamo Sayed Jawad Al-Koei, se allora magari lo recuperiamo dopo. È iscritto il Presidente dell'Assemblea Nazionale del Zimbabwe, l'onorevole Mudenda. C'è? Andiamo avanti. Il Presidente del Parlamento arabo, Mohammed Al-Yamai. No, c'è? Perfetto.
Thank you. The moderators, the distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen, countering hatred based on religion or belief resonates with John Stuart Mill's seminal narrative entitled On Liberty, when he affirms that, and I quote, "The only way in which a human being can make some approach to knowing the whole of a subject is by hearing what can be said about it by persons of every variety of opinion," unquote. This philosophical foundation undergirds the embracing of diverse religious or faith belief perspectives against interfaith polarization that tears up the rubric of our societies. Voltaire's enduring principle that, and I quote, "I may not agree with what you say, but I will defend it to the death your right to say it," also captures the essence of religious tolerance that must inform our approach to interfaith dialogue. The Zimbabwe Constitution of 2013, enacted by the Parliament of Zimbabwe in Article 60, elevates freedom of conscience, religion, thought, and belief as a fundamental right, creating what legal scholars dub a positive liberty framework, one that not merely prohibits interference, but actively anchors religious expression. This constitutional provision guarantees every citizen the right to freedom of religion and belief, including the right to practice, propagate, and give expression to their faith or belief. Thus, this provision recognizes the communal and evangelical dimensions that give many faiths their standing. In Section 56 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe, fortifies the prohibition of discrimination based on religion or belief in what constitutional lawyers describe as belt and braces approach to religious freedom, freedom of conscience and thought. The Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission buttresses stoutly religious freedom and its attendant tenets, That is why Zimbabwe is proud signatory to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, whose Article 18 provides that, I quote, everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. Apart from ratification of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Zimbabwe has also acceded to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, whose Article 8 protects freedom of conscience and religion grounded on African values and traditions of the philosophy of Ubuntu. Ubuntu, which means I am because you are, and you are because we are. That is why Zimbabwe is an interfaith country that is inclusive of all lawful religious persuasions under the banner of Ecumenical Zimbabwe Council of Churches. Accordingly, ladies and gentlemen, there is no hatred based on religion or belief in Zimbabwe, which canvasses polarization, dehumanization, or weaponization of religion or belief. Ladies and gentlemen, congratulations to the Italian Parliament, the IPU, and the Religions for the Peace in the convocation of this second conference on interfaith dialogue. In faithful hope, we shall conquer. Thank you.
So I would like to now invite once again, if he's back in the room, Syed Jawad Al-Hoey, Secretary General of the Al-Hoey Institute. If not, then we will be moving to the President of the Arab Parliament's Right Honorable Mohammed Al-Yammahi. Thank you. It's okay. And on the front rows, I just want to technically address on the front rows where there is no microphone, you are most welcome to the lectern. But then we would like to encourage also other members to take the floor from their seats. Thank you very much, to gain some time. Thank you.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أصحاب المعالي والسعادة، الحضور الكريم، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أود بداية أن أتقدم بالشكر الجزيل، بالشكر والتقدير للاتحاد البرلماني الدولي والبرلمان الإيطالي ومنظمة أديان من أجل السلام على جهودهم في تنظيم هذا المؤتمر الهام. والحقيقة أن الموضوع الذي نحن بصدده اليوم، وهو مكافحة الكراهية على أساس الدين والمعتقد، يمثل تهديداً حقيقياً لنسيج المجتمعات وأمنها، غير أنني أود أن أتناوله من زاوية أكثر شمولاً تتجاوز الأطر الدينية الضيقة وتنطلق من إدراك أوسع لجذور هذه الظاهرة وتجلياتها في واقعنا المعاصر. إن الكراهية على أساس الدين أو المعتقد لا تنشأ من فراغ، بل تتغذى على روافد متعددة من التحيزات الثقافية والعرقية التي تنتج خطاباً تمييزياً وعدائياً تجاه الآخر المختلف ثقافياً، وهو ما يتجلى بوضوح في الصور النمطية السلبية التي ما تزال حتى يومنا هذا تستهدف العرب والمسلمين في بعض المجتمعات الغربية. ونحن هنا لا نتحدث عن كراهية عابرة أو خطاب فردي، بل عن كراهية مؤسسية تتجلى في الإجراءات التمييزية التي تستهدف جنسيات وشعوب بأكملها، ونراها في الخطاب الإعلامي المتطرف في سوق العمل وفي قوانين الهجرة وفي السياسات الأمنية، كما نراها اليوم بشكل أكثر تطرفاً في الموقف الدولي المتخاذل تجاه معاناة الشعب الفلسطيني الذي يتعرض على مدار أكثر من عام ونصف لأبشع جرائم الإبادة الجماعية والتجويع في ظل صمت دولي مخجل، وكأن الدم الفلسطيني ليس مثل دماء باقي البشرية، والحقيقة أن هذا الصمت الدولي المخزي هو صور بشعة من صور الكراهية والعنصرية التي تمارس بأدوات سياسية. أصحاب المعالي والسعادة، إن العالم الذي يدين الكراهية حين تصيبه ويسكت عنها حين تصيب غيره هو عالم فاقد للمصداقية وفاقد لشرعيته الأخلاقية قبل السياسية. لقد آن الأوان أن نضع حداً للنفاق الدولي وازدواجية المعايير، وأن نعيد للعدالة معناها وللكرامة الإنسانية احترامها أياً كانت العقيدة أو الهوية أو الانتماء. أشكركم على حسن الاستماع، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Grazie. Adesso abbiamo la signora Alice Chan, direttore esecutivo e cofondatore del Centro per l'Alfabetizzazione Religiosa e Civica, e poi si prepara Ahmed bin Salman.
Oh, see, is this, it's on? Yeah, okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. I am deeply moved by what I've been hearing from the panel and from the speakers, especially the speaker from Mexico. Muchas gracias. And it's my honor to be here to share a few words based on the work that I'm doing in Canada at the Center for Civic Religious Literacy. Grazie. Yes, it's a privilege to be here from Canada to speak based on my research, my teaching experiences, and the work now at a nonprofit called the Center for Civic Religious Literacy. I have two comments to share based on things that I've learned through my different work, and then one question for the panel and others in the room who'd like to think and talk about this later. Firstly, our work in Canada about religious literacy, I wanted to highlight that it is very much about religion as well as non-religion and spirituality. For us in Canada, this is extremely important, and it invites you to think about your approach to interfaith, how you understand that, because for us, 35% of Canadians are non-religious. That can include those who are spiritual but not religious, humanists, atheists, etc. So it's changing the way that we see this conversation in Canada. As well, Indigenous populations are being more and more recognized in our country through reconciliation, and that requires us to understand and learn from Indigenous spiritualities. So one thing I would like to share here that we have learned in Canada and continue to learn is this idea and concept and value of 7 generations, to understand the 7 generations that have come before and how they've impacted and brought us to where we are today, what we can learn from them, as well as the 7 generations to come. And that is profound in my mind for a lot of the conversations we're seeing in the world today, where different leaders are preparing and planning based on their term or within their lifetime, without seeing what this impact will have later on for generations and generations to come, for one another as well as the earth. So I share that with you, as well as the second learning that I have relates to a lot of conversation this morning about the need for dialogue and the need for education, and this is absolutely true. But one thing that I've learned from my research in Montreal, Toronto, California, and the state of Georgia, which I know is only small parts of the big world that we live in, but from what I've learned there is that absolutely education for religious literacy is important, it is needed, it's there, but it can also disappear. and just as it is doing in many parts of Canada. So education is a key, informal education, but we need support from the systems to keep that going. Whatever happens inside the school is also impacted by what happens outside of the school. So we need education in the form of religious literacy to support those who are social actors, such as healthcare, media, etc., which we've talked about. So I encourage you, please, attend the session tomorrow on religious literacy, hosted by Dr. Catherine Marshall and Dr. Peter Mandeville. Thank you very much.
And I would like to invite now Right Honorable Ahmed bin Salman Al Musallam, the Speaker of the Council of Representatives of Kingdom of Bahrain. Please.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أصحاب المعالي والسعادة، السيدات والسادة، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بداية يطيب لنا أن نشكر جمهورية إيطاليا الصديقة برلمانا وحكومة وشعبا لاحتضان هذا المؤتمر الهام، كما نقدر جهود الاتحاد البرلماني الدولي ومنظمة ديانات من أجل السلام للمساهمة في عقد هذا الاجتماع. أن اجتماعنا اليوم تعبير واضح أن مكافحة الكراهية ومنع التجريد من الإنسانية بالانفتاح على الحوار بين الأديان يمثل مسؤولية مشتركة تقع على عاتقنا جميعا كبرلمانيين وكذلك قادة دينيين ومجتمعات مدنية، إذ أننا أمام حاجة ماسة إلى تجديد التزامنا بالمبادئ التي تحفظ الكرامة الإنسانية وتؤسس لعالم أكثر عدلا وأمنا. لذلك فإن مؤتمرنا هذا يعكس إدراكا جماعيا لأهمية الحوار كمبدأ أساسي لتعزيز السلام والتفاهم بين مختلف الشعوب والثقافات. قد أدركت مملكة البحرين مبكرا مسؤوليتها الإنسانية كحاضنة للسلام والتعايش السلمي بين مختلف الأديان والطوائف، حيث واصلت عملها الدؤوب انطلاقا من فكر عميق ومنهجية إنسانية تبناها حضرة صاحب الجلالة الملك حمد بن عيسى آل خليفة ملك البلاد المعظم حفظه الله ورعاه في تعزيز ثقافة التسامح الديني، فأطلقت جملة واسعة من المبادرات أهمها إعلان مملكة البحرين للتسامح والتعايش في العام 2017، وأسست مركز الملك حمد العالمي للتعايش والتسامح الذي يؤدي دوره في ترسيخ قيم الحوار بين مختلف الأديان، وإنشاء جائزة الملك حمد الدولية للحوار والتعايش السلمي، إلى جانب تدشين كرسي الملك حمد للحوار بين الأديان والتعايش السلمي في جامعة سبينسا في هذه العاصمة العريقة روما. وفتحت مملكة البحرين أبوابها أمام واحد من أكثر الملتقيات العالمية المعاصرة استقطابا لأصحاب الفكر وممثل الأديان من 79 دولة خلال ملتقى البحرين للحوار الذي حمل شعار الشرق والغرب من أجل التعايش السلمي، وشارك فيه قداسة البابا الراحل فرانسيس فضيلة الإمام الأكبر شيخ الأزهر الشريف، حيث خلص للنتائج لا زلنا بحاجة لتوظيف الجهود والإمكانيات لتوجيهها من أجل رفع راية السلام وإشاعة التسامح وإطلاق لغة الحوار والتسويات السلمية لإيقاف الصراعات والتحديات التي يتعرض لها العالم. هذه الخطوات جميعها تؤكد أن مملكة البحرين لم تكتفي بالتعبير عن التزامها بالتسامح، بل اتخذت إجراءات ملموسة لترسيخ هذا النهج على الصعيدين الوطني والدولي. ونحن اليوم في هذا المؤتمر نجدد العزم على مواصلة هذه المسيرة لخلق عالم يقوم على الاحترام المتبادل والتعايش السلمي بعيدا عن الكراهية والانقسام، وذلك يتطلب اتخاذ خطوات عملية تضمن أن الأجيال القادمة سترث عالما تسوده المحبة والسلام والاحترام. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Grazie. Adesso abbiamo il Ryoko Endo dal Kyoto, Giappone, e poi si prepari Abdullah Nassan. Prego. Prego, da lì, e poi ricordo che è possibile, se avete il microfono, di parlare dal vostro posto. Grazie.
Buongiorno, assalamu alaikum, amin, om shanti, shalom. I'm from Japan. My name is Ryoki Endo. I'm from Japan. I'm the founder of a global peace project called Hope 80. It began in 2014 in Palestine, when I visited a 9-year-old boy who had just lost both legs in an airstrike on Gaza. When I entered his room, I could not do anything but hold him in my arms and weep. That moment carved a prayer deep into my heart. May no child ever have to suffer like this. From this prayer, we created the flame of hope. A sacred fire formed from the unification of 16 historical flames from around the world, including embers from the Hiroshima atomic bomb, the eternal flame of Jesus in Jerusalem, and the sacred flame of Kukai in Japan, which has burned continuously for over 1,200 years. This flame now carries the prayers of over 400,000 people, including His Holiness Pope Francis, Pope Leo, yesterday, and His Holiness the Dalai Lama. It is now burning eternally in Lumbini, the birthplace of Buddha, and soon it will be burned in Bethlehem, the birthplace of Jesus. Of course, we hope it may one day shine in Mecca as well. Today, the descendants of former enemies, the grandchildren and great-grandchildren of World War II political leaders, such as US President Truman, UK Prime Minister Churchill, Japanese wartime Prime Minister Tojo, as well as Nazi officer, Auschwitz survivor, and Mahatma Gandhi, and working together with a flame of hope. Our slogan is yesterday's enemy is today's friend. It comes from an old Japanese samurai saying, but its meaning is universal. Let me tell you a story. My mother survived World War II by running from the bombing every night. One day, my Canadian friend asked her, "Do you hate Americans?" She looked confused. For her, war was like a tsunami, a natural disaster, not something to blame on people. Many Japanese people who survived World War II, including Hiroshima, Nagasaki, feels this way. It's a mindset rooted in Buddhism and Shinto, which teaches us follow and live harmony with nature and the concept of nothing is permanent. Clouds shift, waves rise and fall. Life is always changing. Many Buddhists, including myself, believe in reincarnation. And whether we are aware of it or not, we human beings could carry a deep sense of that. I believe The person who is your enemy today may have been your brother in past life, or your daughter in next. When we feel this concept in our bones, hate has nowhere to stay. The future of humanity is not about fighting, it is about healing. Not about controlling nature or people, but about sharing happiness and freedom. This is the heart of Hope 80. This is the meaning of the flame of hope. And this is why we walk together today, not as enemies of the past, but as friends for the future. May no child on the planet have to suffer. Thank you very much.
I now would like to invite Right Honorable Hassan bin Abdullah Al Ghanim, Speaker of the Shura Council, Qatar, please. We don't have the presence here currently of the speaker. Okay. So I would like to now move to Denis Zvizdic, Speaker of the House of Representatives, Bosnia and Herzegovina. Please, Right Honorable.
Thank you very much. Uvažene ekscelencije, poštovani prisutni dame i gospodo, velika mi je čast da vam se danas obratim u Rimu, u jednom od najstarijih i najljepših gradova Europe, kako bi razgovarali o jednoj od najvažnijih tema današnjice, međuvjerskom dijalogu i suzbijanju mržnje zasnovane na vjeri i uvjerenju. Današnji svijet nije samo pogođen ratovima, već i dubokim duhovnim i identitetskim krizama koje razaraju tkivo naših društava. Ali niti jedan ideološki ili vjerski svjetonazor ne može biti razlog za mržnju prema drugom i drugačijem. Čovjek je svjesno biće koje ima potencijal za stvaranje, ali i za destrukciju. I to je ključna razdjelnica između civilizacije i barbarstva. Zbog toga tolerancija, politika saradnje i zajedničko djelovanje u cilju općeg dobra ima ogroman razvojni i stabilizacijski potencijal. Dijalog i međusobni respekt su put do razumijevanja i najbolji lijek za smirivanje tenzija. Nažalost, religija se sve češće koristi kao alat za političku manipulaciju i zastrašivanje. Ne znam da li smo svi svjesni kakve mogu biti posljedice mržnje zasnovane na vjeri i uvjerenju. Mislim da to mogu razumjeti samo oni koji su to iskusili uživo, a ne samo preko TV ekrana i društvenih mreža. Mi u Bosni i Hercegovini dobro znamo šta znači kada pojedinci i politike koriste vjeru u svrhu dehumanizacije. Posljedice toga su etničko očišćenje i genocid. Poslije Drugog svjetskog rata i holokausta rekli smo kao globalna zajednica nikada više. I onda se ponovio genocid u Srebrenici u julu 1995. godine. Poslije Srebrenice smo kao globalna zajednica opet kazali nikada više. I opet smo pali na ispitu zaštite ljudskih prava i civilizacijskih vrijednosti, jer ratovi koje prate zločini nad civilima i posebno djecom bjesne diljem svijeta. I ponavlja se sve opet u Gazi i na mnogim drugim mjestima u svijetu. Dame i gospodo, ja dolazim iz Bosne i Hercegovine, koja je uvijek bila mjesto susreta naroda i religija i po tome je bila oznaka za civilizacijski progres i primjer kako ljudi različitih svjetonazora mogu živjeti zajedno. Glavni grad moje države, Sarajevo, često zovu Jerusalemom Europe, jer u njemu već 500 godina jedna pored druge stoje džamije, katedrale, crkve i sinagoge. Ponavljam, već 500 godina. Takvo višestoljetno međuvjersko prožimanje je nešto na što smo najviše ponosni i zbog čega i imamo obavezu da promovišemo važnost međuvjerskog dijaloga u funkciji očuvanja mira i saradnje. Zbog toga smo prošle godine imali privilegiju da budemo domaćini međunarodne konferencije koja je nosila naziv Članovi parlamenata i vjerski lideri za mir i suživot. Ta konferencija, koja je okupila preko 500 učesnika iz cijelog svijeta, bila je jasan signal da je dijalog između različitih vjera, kultura i civilizacija i moguć i neophodan. Na toj konferenciji usvojili smo Sarajevsku deklaraciju koja poziva na globalno partnerstvo između vjerskih i političkih lidera u borbi protiv ekstremizma, diskriminacije i govora mržnje, a jedan od key speakera i panelista na toj konferenciji bio je i uvaženi gospodin Palavicini koji sjedi ovdje. Ove poruke s naše konferencije su u potpunosti komplementarne sa porukama iz komunikea iz Marakeša iz 2023. godine, gdje smo zajedno zaključili da je međuvjerski dijalog ključni alat za promociju mira, pravde i ljudskih prava. Na kraju iskoristit ću priliku i predložiti nekoliko mjera kako bi parlamenti unaprijedili stanje u borbi protiv svih oblika mržnje koji su utemeljeni na vjeri ili uvjerenju. Prvo, smatram da zakonski je neophodno zabraniti govor mržnje, jer su radikalni nacionalisti i vjerski fanatici najveći problem svakoga društva. Drugo, važno je povećati ulaganje u obrazovanje i promociju tolerantnih politika, posebno u školama, ali i kroz digitalne platforme koje mladi ljudi najviše koriste. I treće, važno je hrabro i otvoreno unaprijediti partnerstvo s vjerskim liderima i vjerskim organizacijama, jer oni imaju važan utjecaj na zajednice, obzirom da se prema dostupnim podacima između 80 i 85% stanovništva čitave planete identificira sa nekim oblikom organizovane religije. Na kraju, dame i gospodo, Džalaluddin Rumi kaže: ne budi zarobljenik mržnje, jer će ona tiho spaliti tvoju dušu. Zbog toga svi zajedno moramo postaviti sistemske temelje za naša društva u kojima će vladati tolerancija, a ne nikako mržnja. Hvala vam na pažnji.
Grazie. Adesso abbiamo il Presidente del Senato del Cile, Manuel Ossandón. Presidente Ossandón? Se non c'è, passerei all'onorevole Deborah Bergamini e poi magari vediamo se arrivano e recuperiamo gli altri. Chiedo a tutti, ci sono ancora 5 o 6 interventi, di stare nei 3 minuti, anche perché sono le 18 meno 10. Grazie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Excellencies, honorable delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor for me to address you on behalf of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Mediterranean. I'd also like to thank the Italian Parliament, the Interparliamentary Union and Religions for Peace for having set up such an important and timely conference. This meeting holds particular significance, taking place during the year of the Jubilee, a moment of spiritual reflection and renewal. Yet we witness how violence and conflicts continue to rage in our regions, especially in Ukraine and the Middle East, affecting too many innocent victims. In this regard, we, the policymakers, are the first who are called to obey to the call for enduring culture of encounter, trust, and universal fraternity. As parliamentarians, we must translate these values into concrete legislative action, ensuring that human dignity, religious freedom, and peace building remain at the core of our national and international agendas, aware that dialogue is never a weakness, but strength, and that true leadership means building bridges, not walls. It is precisely in these circumstances that interfaith dialogue, as well as the role of religious leaders, is crucial to convey messages of peace and reconciliation and to make people hear the voice of enduring hope, the possibility that life can flourish even in the midst of appalling situations like the ones that are undergoing. The action of interfaith dialogue and religious leaders is very tangible and concrete. For instance, PAM, the Parliamentary Assembly of the Mediterranean, has been joining efforts with, among others, the schools of Ulama of Morocco, as well as the Egyptian Ministry of Religious Endowments, especially under Minister Goma, and the Hedaya Center in the United Arab Emirates to combat radicalization and extremist violence among youth. Today, in the Euro-Mediterranean and Gulf regions, religion is too often instrumentalized for political purposes, used against minorities and diversity. As parliamentarians, we have the duty to act, promoting and adopting legislative frameworks that ensure religious and belief minorities are recognized, protected, fully integrated into our societies. This also includes the regulation of contents on digital platforms that now, unfortunately, play a central role in spreading religious hatred and disinformation, aiming at undermining democratic values and institutions. PAM is launching a dedicated communication campaign to combat online disinformation, misinformation, violence, and fake news. At the same time, defending religious freedom must never serve to justify setbacks in other rights. In this regard, interfaith and intercultural education from an early stage, along with the promotion of tolerance in the media and public discourse, are more than ever essential to building and reinforcing peaceful coexistence and lasting stability and prosperity. Thank you.
And I would like to invite a Vice President of the European Parliament, also an Italian herself, Madam Right Honourable Antonella Sberna.
Grazie. Presidente Lupi, Presidente Casini, Presidente Axon, gentili colleghi, relatori, ospiti, voglio innanzitutto ringraziarvi per questa importante occasione di confronto, perché il tema ci riunisce oggi tocca il cuore stesso dei nostri valori democratici e delle fondamenta della nostra umanità, nonché della nostra società condivisa. Ho ascoltato tantissimi degli interventi che sono stati portati avanti finora e credo che le loro parole e le loro riflessioni ci aiutino a metterci seduti e guardare in prospettiva. È un onore per me intervenire oggi in questa conferenza di alto livello e sono fiera di aver ricevuto la delega della Presidente Roberta Metsola. Io sono qui oggi in rappresentanza del Parlamento europeo e vi porto il suo saluto perché rappresentiamo un'assemblea democratica, il Parlamento europeo, che riunisce 500 milioni di cittadini e si fonda sul rispetto reciproco, sul multiculturalismo, sull'arte del compromesso. L'Unione europea, come sapete, nasce da un'esigenza di pace. Qui siamo tutti artisti delle parole, permettetemi l'espressione, e di diplomazia, ma è vero che in questi ultimi tempi abbiamo osservato con crescente preoccupazione l'aumento dell'odio e della polarizzazione anche su base religiosa. Questo odio divide la società, frantuma la fiducia e troppo spesso sfocia in discriminazioni o addirittura in atti di violenza. Colpisce credenti e non credenti e spesso a pagarne il prezzo sono le minoranze religiose, isolate, prese di mira e disumanizzate. In qualità di vicepresidente del Parlamento europeo, io ho la delega all'articolo 17 del Trattato di funzionamento dell'Unione europea, che è proprio il dialogo interreligioso, è per questo motivo che oggi sono qui a rappresentare il Parlamento, e ho il compito istituzionale di mantenere un dialogo aperto, regolare e trasparente con le chiese, le associazioni religiose e le organizzazioni filosofiche e non confessionali. E vedo qui diversi partner del nostro dialogo che saluto con piacere. Questo dialogo non è un cerimoniale, è essenziale, è uno strumento per costruire fiducia, scambiare prospettive e lavorare concretamente sui valori fondamentali della dignità umana, un valore che nessuna fede e visione del mondo dovrebbe trascurare. Nel Parlamento europeo il dialogo interreligioso e interculturale ci consente di ascoltare, di dare voce a istanze spesso trascurate, ponendo al centro del dibattito la persona e la sua diversità. Attraverso seminari con i partner, confessionali, religiosi e non confessionali, promuoviamo i valori democratici, i diritti umani, la tolleranza e la convivenza pacifica. Il dialogo è anche uno strumento di prevenzione dei conflitti. L'articolo 17 del trattato prevede un costante confronto con i leader religiosi sui temi di agenda, politica e di attualità dell'Unione Europea e della Commissione Europea. È su questo che noi lavoriamo. Combattiamo l'odio, online e offline, perché la democrazia non può vivere nella paura e nell'esclusione, sia che si tratti di attacchi al luogo di culto o anche a chi non crede. Il messaggio è lo stesso: dove c'è odio non c'è fiducia, e la fiducia cede il passo alla paura. Dobbiamo reagire o rischiamo una frammentazione sociale. Nel mondo digitale attuale le parole si amplificano e possono ferire. La disinformazione prospera. Per questo l'Unione Europea ha costruito un solido impianto normativo come il Digital Service Act, le leggi sulla cybersicurezza e le strategie per l'alfabetizzazione digitale, per coniugare responsabilità, etica e libertà di espressione. Questo impegno accompagna la transizione socio-economica per non lasciare indietro nessuno, ma servono educazione, cittadinanza attiva e dialogo autentico che unisca invece di dividere. Occasioni come quella di oggi sono fondamentali. L'odio cresce dove le persone si sentono invisibili, e per questo prevenzione e protezione devono andare di pari passo, come indica anche il piano d'azione dell'Unione Europea contro il razzismo, con figure chiave come i coordinatori contro antisemitismo e odio antimusulmano, chiari segnali del nostro impegno. Il nostro ruolo come parlamentari e artisti della parola, permettetemelo, è al tempo stesso legale e morale. Let me conclude in English, because I really appreciate that you can catch all the deep sense of what I want to say you. The words we use every day matter because they form the foundation of our shared values and coexistence. Let us use them wisely to foster a sense of belonging and shared responsibility in building our society. Words matter because they shape our understanding of the world, communicate our thoughts, and influence our interactions. Words have power because they shape our worldview and our relationship with others. When measured, they can divide, harm and spread hate. Hate speech and harmful language dehumanize and fuel division. But when used with care, words can unite, promote understanding and challenge prejudice. Let's shape together a culture where words build bridges instead of breaking them. The word we choose today shape the world we will live in tomorrow. If we commit to using language that reflects our core European values, democracy, freedom, solidarity and human dignity, we have the power to build a future worthy of other principles. As Wittgenstein said, the limits of my language means the limit of my world. So let's now work together to build a framework that gives meaning to everything around us. Thank you for your invitation.
Adesso abbiamo l'onorevole Ahmed Touasi, membro della Camera dei rappresentanti del Marocco. Non c'è, passiamo. C'è.
Yeah, I'm trying.
شكرا السيدة الرئيسة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على النبي الأمين. يسعدني أن أتدخل باسم برلمان المملكة المغربية في هذه الجلسة التي تتناول واحدة من أخطر التحديات التي تواجه الإنسانية، والمتمثلة في تصاعد الكراهية على أساس الدين والمعتقد بكل ما يرافقها من استقطاب وإقصاء وتجريد من الإنسانية. لقد أصبحت هذه الظاهرة التي تتغذى عن الخوف وعن الجهل وتنتشر بسرعة عبر وسائل الإعلام ومواقع التواصل الاجتماعي تهدد السلم الاجتماعي داخل الدول وتغذي مشاعر الشك والرفض بين الشعوب والثقافات، وهو ما يستدعي منا جميعا وقفة حازمة تتجاوز الإدانة إلى بناء بدائل فعالة تنطلق من التربية والثقافة والقانون والعمل السياسي المسؤول. إننا في المملكة المغربية يشكل تعزيز قيم التعايش المشترك والتسامح أحدى الثوابت الوطنية الراسخة، وهو نهج تتبناه المملكة المغربية تحت القيادة الحكيمة لصاحب الجلالة الملك محمد السادس، الذي ما فتئ يؤكد على أهمية ترسيخ ثقافة الحوار ونبذ الكراهية ورفض كل أشكال التطرف والتعصب. وقد أكد جلالته في رسالته إلى المنتدى العالمي لتحالف الحضارات المنعقد في نوفمبر 2022 بمدينة فاس أن الحوار يجب أن يشرك الشباب، لأنهم ليسوا فقط فئة ينبغي حمايتها من الكراهية، بل هم فاعلون الحقيقيون في بناء السلام. من هذا المنطلق بادرت المملكة إلى طرح واعتماد اليوم الدولي لمناهضة خطاب الكراهية، حيث تبوأ المغرب مكانة رائدة على الصعيد الإقليمي والدولي في مكافحة خطاب الكراهية. وكان وراء اعتماد 18 يونيو يوما دوليا لمناهضة خطاب الكراهية من قبل الأمم المتحدة في يوليو 2021، والذي تحتفل به الأمم المتحدة في 18 من يونيو كل سنة كمبادرة مغربية تجسد انخراطا فعليا في مواجهة هذا التحدي العالمي، ويأتي ذلك في سياق جهود أوسع تشمل مراجعة مناهج التعليم وتكوين الأئمة والمرشدين والمرشدات بمعايير حديثة منفتحة، وتطوير التشريعات الوطنية التي تحمي التعدد وتحارب التمييز. ويعتز المغرب بإرساء منظومة وطنية ترتكز على شراكة متقدمة بين المؤسسات الرسمية والمجتمع المدني، خاصة فيما يتعلق بتمكين الشباب ومواكبتهم عبر السياسات العمومية، بما يضمن لهم فضاء آمنا يعزز مساهمتهم في التعبير ويرسخ قيم ثقافة الاندماج والاعتراف بالآخر. كما يولي البرلمان المغربي أهمية خاصة لدور المؤسسات التشريعية في مواجهة خطاب التطرف والكراهية من خلال التشريع والمراقبة والحوار مع مختلف الفاعلين، بما في ذلك القيادات الدينية والمجتمعية. وقد توج هذا التوجه باحتضان المملكة للمؤتمر البرلماني حول الحوار بين الأديان بمراكش سنة 2023، الذي خلص إلى اعتماد إعلان مراكش ودعا إلى وضع مدونة سلوك برلمانية دولية تحترم الأديان وتحترم المعتقدات وتجرم خطابات الكراهية. سيادة السادة، إن الكراهية لا تواجه بالكراهية بل بالمعرفة وبترسيخ القيم الإنسانية الجامعة وبإعلاء سلطة القانون. ولهذا فإننا ندعو إلى تقوية التعاون بين البرلمانات وممثلي الأديان والمجتمع المدني لمواجهة الكراهية بكل أشكالها، صون حرية الدين والمعتقد كحق أصيل لا يمكن التنازل عنه، دعم التربية على المواطنة وحقوق الإنسان، والإعلام المهني المسؤول خصوصا في مواجهة التضليل والتطرف الرقمي، تمكين الشباب والنساء من فضاءات المشاركة والتأثير باعتبارهم شركاء في بناء المستقبل. ختاما، فإن المغرب يضع هذه الرؤية المتكاملة في صلب عمله الوطني والدولي، ويجدد التزامه الكامل بالمساهمة في كل المبادرات التي تعزز السلم وتدعم الحوار وتكافح الكراهية، إيمانا منه بأن السلام ليس فقط غاية بل هو اختيار يومي في السياسات والتشريعات، في التربية وفي العلاقة بين الشعوب. شكرا لكم.
And now we have actually concluded the time that was allocated, but we would like to give that courtesy time close our list and turn back to our panelists here. So if I may actually invite David Agios, Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives of Malta, please. And I would really like to ask those floor interventions to be kept as short as possible. Thank you, so that we can close the panel.
Thank you. I won't speak long. It's only 2.5 hours, so. I come from Malta, as you say. Malta is an island. It's an island, a small island in the middle of the Mediterranean, where we have 365 churches. One day of the year. We have in our constitution also the fact that the Roman Catholic religion is the main religion of our country, of Malta.
Sorry, you have to change the microphone because can't listen. Thank you very much.
I have to start again? From the beginning? Okay. As I was saying, I come from the small island of Malta, where we have in our constitution that the Roman Catholic religion is the main religion of our country. However, the same constitution also ensures full freedom of conscience and free exercise of religious worship for all individuals. It also protects freedom of expression, including the freedom to hold opinions and to receive and communicate ideas without interference. Unfortunately, hatred on the basis of religion or belief, including hate speech, discrimination and violence, is a daily occurrence in international news. We all witness what's happening in Ukraine, in the Middle East. Therefore, vigilance in monitoring the potential expansion of hate and the impact on individual rights, as well as local, national, religion and global responses, is vital. Religious freedom, tolerance and understanding are key factors to fight escalation of polarization and religious weaponization. Religious freedom is the seed of peace and the soul of development. Where it is respected, societies thrive. Where it is denied, conflict arises. The work has to begin in our own societies. We need to combat all sorts of discrimination with good and strong laws. Here's where the role of us parliamentarians is crucial. We are responsible to legislate, and we are responsible to see that legislation is implemented in an effective way. Keeping peace and promoting peaceful coexistence is a continuous process, one which is not limited to a particular geographical region or point in history, but is rather a universal journey requiring joint and innovative tools. It is crucial to transform words into action and be open to different beliefs and creeds. Therefore, I emphasize the importance to recognize that tolerance and peace are not abstract, unattainable concepts, applicable only to certain countries or political realities, but are universal notions that should form the basis of our everyday policy, of our legal script. Moreover, I emphasize that tolerance and peace necessitate a reciprocal approach and the wholehearted participation by everyone, from the youngest member of our societies to our elderly population, from the remote farmer working the land to the urban businessman CEO. We all hold the potential to be ambassadors for tolerance and peace. Allow me to conclude with what Pope Leo said yesterday during the general audience. Nothing is lost with peace. Everything can be lost with war. We must therefore work together so that our beliefs, our religions are catalysts of peace and not war and conflict. Thank you, dear friends. Thank you, Italian Parliament. Thank you, IPU.
Grazie. Adesso abbiamo Ad Wellaheb Al-Shair. C'è? Grazie. Chiedo veramente a tutti di stare nel tempo, così possiamo anche dare la possibilità ai relatori di replicare per un minuto. Prego.
أصحاب السماحة والمعالي والنيافة، أصحاب العلم والتفكير والتوجيه والإعلام، السيدات والسادة، باسم رابطة العالم الإسلامي أشارك اليوم في هذا المؤتمر البرلماني الدولي الثاني للحوار بين الأديان، والذي يعبر عن رغبة المشاركين الواعية في صياغة رؤية مستقبلية هادفة، وتمكن للدبلوماسية البرلمانية وكذلك للدبلوماسية الدينية في دعم الجهود متعددة الأطراف من أجل الخير العام. كما أحب أن أنقل لكم تحيات معالي الأمين العام لرابطة العالم الإسلامي الشيخ الدكتور محمد بن عبد الكريم العيسى ورئيس هيئة علماء المسلمين، ورغبته في أن تكون هذه اللقاءات مستمرة للتعاون بين القطاعات البرلمانية والمنظمات الدينية. أيها السادة، السيدات والسادة، نجتمع اليوم في هذا المؤتمر العالمي وفي ضيافة إيطاليا، ولكن في ظروف دولية بالغة الصعوبة، وتعلمون جميعا أن العالم يشهد أحداثا متلاحقة وتغيرات متسارعة حتى في موازين القوى المؤثرة على الساحة الدولية، وتضعنا اليوم أمام تحديات جديدة وأمام بنية جديدة للنظام الدولي، وتدعونا إلى أن ننظر إلى تجارب الماضي والآلام التي مر بها الماضي، لننظر أيضا إلى المستقبل ولإطلاق حقبة جديدة على أسس من العدالة والاحترام والمساواة بين شعوب العالم ودوله، وذلك تأسيسا على النجاحات السابقة التي يجب أن نستمر في المحافظة عليها. السيدات والسادة، نحن اليوم هنا لنقول للعالم بأسره إن الحراك الديني والتعاليم الإسلامية خصوصا تتكامل مع القيم الإنسانية وتقدم مفتاحا لكل خير، فهي قاطرة الحوار والتضامن وبارقة الأمل لمستقبل حضاري يؤمن بحسن الجوار، يعزز الثقة ويحمي البشرية. إن رسالتنا الواضحة للجميع، وأن نتحدث باسم أصدقائنا في كل المنظمات الدينية، أننا جادون اليوم أكثر من غيره في دعوتنا إلى إيقاف كافة الحروب والصراعات وتغليب الاحتكام إلى لغة العقل والمنطق السليم وتكريس سيادة القانون وإدانة كافة صور العنف والظلم دون محاباة ولا استثناء، ليقيننا أن هذه الأزمات تستهلك من إنسانيتنا قبل أنها تهدر المقدرات والثروات والشباب والفتيات والجيل المستقبلي كاملا، وتستجرنا إلى حروب شاملة أكثر فظاعة. وأؤكد لكم أن منظمة رابطة العالم الإسلامي التي تنطلق من أقدس قبلة للمسلمين مكة المكرمة ستواصل عملها الدؤوب وتضع يدها في يد الجميع لدعم كل جهد مساند من أجل حماية المستقبل وتجاوز الخلافات وتعزيز القيم الجامعة لتحقيق الأهداف المشتركة. شكرا لكم.
I would like to invite Monsieur Nehma, a member of the Council of Algeria. So, Monsieur Nehma, Issam Nehma, Honorable Issam Nehma. N'est pas ici?
No, bye. Next.
D'accord. Sahar Maranlu, University of London. Sorry. Honorable Issam Nehma is here. Okay, please, sir.
Honorable Chair, Honorable Chair, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, salamullahi ala al-jamia. Let me begin by expressing my deep appreciation to the IPU for organizing this important conference on interfaith dialogue. I also extend my sincere thanks to the Italian Parliament for hosting us in this beautiful and historic city of Rome, a spiritual crossroads and cradle of dialogue across civilization and faith. I equally acknowledge the valuable contribution of, religion for peace, which adds a spiritual dimension to this encounter. I came to you from Algeria, a land of Saint Augustine, a towering thinker born from our soil, shaped by its spirit and died in the city of Annaba, where his basilica still overlooks the Mediterranean as a symbol of the union between faith, thoughts, and identity. From that heritage, I bring the greetings of Algeria, a country, spiritual wisdom, civilization depth, and human dignity. It is both an honor and responsibility to speak on behalf of People's Democratic Republic of Algeria, a nation that emerges from a painful colonial past, reclaims its sovereignty, and builds its project upon values of justice, spiritual authenticity, and inclusive governance. In this context, I wish to highlight the dynamic legislative work taking place within Algeria Parliament. Just recently reviewed a new law on the governance of endowment, Waqf assets. This reflects our state commitment to institutionalizing the spiritual domain within framework of transparency, modernity, and public benefit. This effort is being spearheaded by the President of the Council of the Nation, Mr. Azzouz Nasri, as a part of the nation vision supported by Mr. the President Abdelmajid Tebboune, who has prioritized the modernization of religious governance as a pillar of our inclusive state building. It is worth recalling that Algeria is a home of over 74 churches and cathedrals, many of which classified as a protected heritage sites. We have also restored the Basilica of Our Lady of Africa and are preparing renovation of the Sacré-Cœur Cathedral, a reflection of Algeria's commitment to spiritual diversity and memory. In Algeria, religion is not excluded from public life. Instead, it is institutionally organized by law and public structure. Our constitution affirms Islam as a state religion, yet guarantees freedom of belief within a well-balanced national framework. Distinguished colleagues, this conference is not a diplomatic luxury, it is a moral imperative. We parliamentarians are called to be more than legislator. We must become guardian of conscience, architect of cohesion, and builder of shared hope. Dialogue must go beyond ceremony. It must become policy, legislation, and a daily culture. Algeria does not claim to be a perfect model, but a path, one built on a moderation, openness, and a national unity in diversity. Thank you. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Grazie. Adesso abbiamo Sahar Maraniu.
University of London.
Eccolo.
Hello. Thank you so much. I'm a socio-legal academic from Iran.
teaching and working in the UK. My work is around justice and Islamic conceptions of justice, how people, especially public, perceive justice in online and offline world. I have a question to ask, especially now with what's going on against Iran, my country. My question is that how we can allow God, how we can actually allow religion to play a more serious role in peacemaking when the politicians do not listen to religious leaders. They don't listen to the international law. I do teach international law and human rights. They don't listen to those concepts that we have fought for years. And when public emotions are more controlled by misinformation and disinformation on the digital world rather than our own religious teaching and leaders, I'm really worried at the moment, especially during the last few days after what's happening, I mean, for last few months, for last few actually years. While we are making dialogue here, countries of such a rich, diverse religious history, such as Lebanon, Palestine, and my country, Iran, are attacked, and innocent people are killed because of the Western politician misconceptions. I mean, from their perspective, we are numbers, not the human. How we can say that from the eyes of God, we are humans, equal in human dignity, and lives are important as non-Muslim, people not coming from the Middle East. Thank you so much. I'm sorry, I'm quite emotional these days. Thank you.
And as this is our last speaker from the floor will be Farid Ahmad, I would like to invite National Secretary External Affairs of Ahmadiyya Muslim Community UK. Please, sir.
Thank you very much. And firstly, thank you to the organisers and to the IPU for the conference. I have some remarks on this topic. I think we've heard a lot about parliamentarians talking about laws to protect and end hatred, end discrimination. But I think the role of parliamentarians goes far beyond just stopping hatred. How much time is being invested in promoting laws and creating laws that build respect in society? And how much time is used by parliamentarians to give voice to those who are the most marginalised in society, to mainstream the voices of minorities? Through such actions, we can build bridges far more effectively. And yes, we've heard about faith and belief as a route to peace, but we also know that faith without action is meaningless. We need to focus not on ideology, but on values, values of our society that are common to all of us. And in Islam, we were told by the founder, the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, that no Arab is superior to a non-Arab, and no non-Arab is superior to an Arab. It is this concept of equality that will counter hatred. And we need to be wary, because if we do not, we see and we hear about the domino effect. You start with one and you target the next and the next and the next. The answer to that is to go to the source, to stop it, to focus on equality. And the last couple of points I'd like to make is that there is a saying in Islam of the Holy Prophet that all actions depend upon the motive. I'm sure all of us here are committed to the idea of countering hatred and promoting peace. But how many of us, perhaps secretly, have carve-outs to those ideals? And if we don't have carve-outs, then it is our duty to make sure we convey that to others who perhaps have some reservations. And lastly, I think the actions that we need in current world affairs is to focus on justice. There can be no peace without justice. And the leader of our community, His Holiness Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, has said that we must leave a legacy of peace, not a legacy of bloodshed, and must leave a legacy for our future generations that we can be proud of. And that starts with freedom of religion and starts with countering hatred. and treating others as equals. Thank you.
Before we turn to the panel, we would like to also invite the great-grandson of Mahatma Gandhi, representing Flame of Hope, Tushar Gandhi. You're invited for 1 minute. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm a misfit in this house where largely people's representatives are talking, but since I represent the legacy of my great-grandfather, I take this opportunity to share a few thoughts. It's very nice that the whole House seems to be very concerned about the conflict and violence that have become oppressive for us. But I think what we need to do today is to look inwards, because civilization, religion, and society have institutionalized violence, discrimination, and oppression in the form of patriarchy. We don't even consider patriarchal discrimination to be an act of violence. And it has seeped into our families, not just in society or amongst countries. Privileged women have found their positions, but a large part of society still thrives on patriarchy and patriarchal discrimination. As long as that is not resolved, as long as we don't create religious practices that are based on true equality, this dialogue will not have much of an effect. In 1930, my great-grandfather suggested that it was time to turn the searchlight inwards and look within ourselves to find what was wrong with society. I think the time has come when we start putting the searchlight back again within ourselves and not try to find blame with others. With this, I leave you. I represent the Flame of Hope. And just as a final thought, I would like to say that as the darkness of hate, discrimination, and conflict seem to be oppressive, it is time to burn the lanterns or lamps of love and become the flame of love ourselves. What my great-grandfather said, be the change that you wish to see in this world. I think we all need to practice that in the present moment. Gaza, the genocide in Gaza continues not because of the evil of violence, but because the silence of the majority. Our voices need to be heard in society loudly. Thank you very much.
Bene, adesso abbiamo una brevissima replica da parte di ogni relatore. Inizierei da Sua Eminenza Koovakad.
Grazie. Sono molto grato per gli interventi che abbiamo ascoltato oggi, sottolineando la necessità per la pace e per la giustizia. Sono particolarmente grato per l'apprezzamento che avete fatto per l'iniziativa per promuovere pace da parte dell'Italia e anche da parte della Santa Sede. Dall'esperienza noi sappiamo che dove c'è la pace c'è lo sviluppo. Dunque se noi vogliamo lasciare una società pacifica per i nostri figli, dobbiamo essere intelligenti a promuovere la pace, dove naturalmente verrà anche lo sviluppo e il benessere. Io vorrei solamente concludere ricordando le parole del Santo Padre Papa Leone XIV. In un mondo ferito dalla violenza e dai conflitti, sono convinto che saremo concordi e liberi da condizionamenti ideologici e politici. Potremo essere efficaci nel dire no alla guerra e sì alla pace, no alla corsa agli armamenti e sì al disarmo, no a un'economia che impoverisce i popoli, che è la terra, e sì allo sviluppo integrale. La testimonianza della nostra fraternità, che mi auguro potremo mostrare con gesti efficaci, contribuirà certamente a edificare un mondo più pacifico, come desiderano in cuor loro tutti gli uomini e le donne di buona volontà. In questo senso molto importante anche evitare la discriminazione basando sulla minoranza, maggioranza, religioni, e così speriamo che con questa iniziativa lodevole possiamo andare avanti contribuendo un mondo migliore che oggi. Grazie.
Prego, Pallavicini.
Well, just to be brief, I think 3 points. The first one would be the example that, if I may say now, Pope Leo is updating of the great experience, as far as I could witness in Abu Dhabi, with this human fraternity declaration that linked a shared values in a document by Sheikh Al-Azhar Ahmed Al-Tayyib and Pope Francis as a symbol and a concrete example of creating the premises of no hatred and no abuse of religion for power, but together united for the building a concrete possibility of brotherhood. And I think this has been then since Abu Dhabi, then it was implemented and in Manama, in Bahrain, and in Kazakhstan, and in Indonesia. And so this is something that is spreading, and it can be still now an example for all believers and for all political leaders as well. The second point is, I think, the great example of Europe, which was mentioned by Vice President Berna, and if I may link it also to the Bosnian example, how Jews and minorities, Christians in Bosnia, in Europe, share experiences in tragical situations, but can be part of roots that develop fruits for the future. So Bosnia and Europe are part of something that is very interesting according to my my experience. And last point are champions. We have just heard of the nephew of Mahatma Gandhi. We have heard from Algeria, the land of Emir Abdel Qadir al-Jazairi. We have here in our room the son of Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayya. These are champions of religious leadership that have been able to implement guidance in concrete challenges. And this is where parliamentarians and religious leaders can provide an effective possibility for contemporary challenges. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I would like to turn to Your Eminence, Archbishop Angeleus, please.
Thank you. Friends, please bear with me. The difference between politicians and religious leaders is I don't need to be elected and I don't need to be popular, but I do need to be honest. We have spoken today much about what we do well and what goes right in our countries. And that's a good thing because there is much that is done well and many good things that happen. But I think we also need to look at what we still need to do. It is very good for us to gather today. It is very good for us to speak truth, and it's very good for us to collaborate. But this is a starting point, and it's a very good starting point. I just hope from here we go into greater bilateral and multilateral initiatives, because very little can be done in this setting except to hear. But I think when we go into bilateral and multilateral initiatives that allow us to do even more and to learn from each other, I have much to learn. My church has much to learn. But I also have much to give, and my church has much to give. And I think when we understand that dynamic, it's important for us to learn from each other and to speak truth to each other. Thank you.
And I would like to now turn to Nazila Gaye.
If the essence of spiritual truth is one, then we find it also echoed and manifested in the arts over time. And I want to turn to the words of Saadi, an Iranian poet from 750 years ago, when he said, "Human beings are members of a whole in creation of one essence and soul. If one member is afflicted with pain, other members uneasy will remain." We need the reality check of our societies. If we're not seeing the pain, we need to open the doors of Parliament. We need to have open days. We need to engage more. We need to reach out more. And we need to be able to reach out not to the closed list of communities that we've been in touch with, but so many more. We're here as parliamentarians and other actors who are keen to learn about how to better support parliamentarians in taking up the challenge, as Archbishop Angelos said, to take up the challenge honestly of advancing freedom of religion or belief for everyone. So thank you to those who shared about the steps that you're taking, plan to take alone and together in advancing this. And let's spend the next 2 days to see how to deepen that. Thank you.
Grazie. Adesso chiedo al Rashid Al-Nuami. Prego.
Thank you very much. Briefly, what I can say that the take-out from this session, which is we share as Member of Parliament and faith leaders, 3 things. We have to learn how to live with our differences. The second, we have to agree to disagree. And the third, that we have to invest in dialogue, dialogue, dialogue. Thank you.
Ultima, ma non ultima. Prego, la nostra.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. As we reflect on the growing tide of hatred, religious weaponization, and the humanization of community, I'm reminded that the greatest antidote to fear is not silence, but solidarity. And the most powerful force to build solidarity is young people, especially young women. In my country, Indonesia, we are often told to wait for experience, to wait for permission, but I believe that youth cannot afford to wait for peace. We must create it. Yeah. Through Ecobineka, we are doing just planting seeds, peace, both literally, symbolically. We are turning shared climate crisis into shared action. We are reclaiming online spaces with narrative of empathy, faith, coexistence. We are showing that when youth are trust, we don't just imagine a better world, we build it. Peace is not a distant dream. It's a daily responsibility. Let us not only speak about young people, let us listen to them, invest in them, and walk with them as co-leader of change, because in the hands of empowered youth, faith becomes a bridge, not a weapon. Thank you.
Allora, prima di dare 2 importanti avvisi, credo che anche noi dobbiamo ringraziare sia i relatori che tutti gli interventi che ci sono stati. Mi sembra che sia stato un ottimo pomeriggio di lavoro che sarà ripreso poi nella giornata di domani e nel documento conclusivo. Il primo avviso riguarda l'udienza che il Santo Padre Leone XIV ci darà per tutti i partecipanti a questa Assemblea dell'Unione Interparlamentari sabato 21 giugno alle ore 10. È importantissimo che ognuno di voi confermi la partecipazione al personale della Registration Desk al fine di poter prenotare il transfer. Il transfer partirà alle ore 7:45 da piazza Montecitorio. Vi informo inoltre che coloro che intendano raggiungere il Vaticano autonomamente con mezzi propri sono pregati di prendere contatto con la propria ambasciata presso la Santa Sede per comunicare le targhe delle auto che accederanno alla città del Vaticano per la necessaria autorizzazione. O con il pullman e il transfer alle ore 7:45 da piazza Montecitorio, o se volete recarvi con mezzi propri dovete comunicare le targhe al vostro ambasciatore presso la Santa Sede per l'autorizzazione. Il rientro dal Vaticano a piazza Montecitorio saranno disponibili per il rientro gli stessi mezzi alle ore 11, dalle ore 11:30 alle ore 12:30. Questo per l'udienza di sabato mattina. Alla sera, per chi di voi si fermerà e vorrà partecipare, nell'ambito del giubileo delle manifestazioni del giubileo dei governanti, è stato organizzato un concerto in piazza San Pietro alle ore 20:30 dal titolo Armonie di Speranza, con la partecipazione di pianisti di fama mondiale quale Beatrice Rama, Brad Meldau, Francesco Piemontesi, Gabriele Montero, Alexander Malofid, Alessi Shradrin, Nabuiki Zucchi. Non sono previsti ovviamente trasporti a carico, è necessario sempre per chi vuole di voi partecipare alla registration desk dire la vostra interesse a partecipare a questo concerto, è aperto ovviamente a tutti voi, in modo da potervi dare poi il biglietto per l'ingresso. Grazie, credo Safak, a te la parola.
It was, first of all, to our gracious host, Italian Parliament Chamber of Deputies, and all the interpreters that has shown the patience to us, as well as the great participation. It's been an honor to co-host, co-moderate this session, and to hear this wisdom coming from every direction, along with my co-moderator, Mr. Lupi. As a fellow parliamentarian, as my contemporary has said, the words are magical. I think that's what brings us together. Le parole sono magiche. Killing and making peace in the name of God is not the first, but it can be last. And we still have a chance to make it last. Killing and making peace in the name of race is not the first, but we still have a chance to make it last. If war promises shared suffering, peace promises shared happiness, we must be crazy to refuse it. Thank you very much for giving me the honor.